I lifted something heavy on a manager's orders, and my C-section stitches ripped, but she isn't going to get away with it. A bit of important background. In 2014, I had a C-section. I was fired from my previous job because they didn't want to take responsibility if something happened to a pregnant woman in the workplace. I was hired back at a fast food restaurant where I had my very first job, and it wasn't McDonald's. It's a slightly more expensive chain where you can get fried chicken, hot dogs, and double cheeseburgers. There won't be a word about the baby's father in this story because he wasn't with us. I lived with my older sister, who was more like a mother to me. She was with me when I had my C-section. She was with my son every moment of his life. My doctor told me that if I was going to return to work earlier than the recommended 4 to 6 weeks of recovery and rest, I needed light duty, and I couldn't lift anything heavier than my son, which was 3 kilograms, about 6.6 pounds. And so, I was hired at a fast food restaurant that was always very busy during peak hours. Lunchtime from 12 to 1 p.m. brought in over $800, and dinner from 17 to 6 p.m. brought in over $700. And yes, the only reason I was hired was that the hiring manager adored me. When I quit the first time, she said there would always be a job for me because she liked my work ethic. She said I was the best worker she'd had in years. No one agreed to extra shifts as quickly as I did. No one strove to learn as fast as I did. So, since I already had experience, they wanted me to work the lunch rush, but I begged to work the dinner shift. Evening shifts allowed me to spend time with my newborn son during the day, and my sister, who I lived with, would return from work and could watch the baby in the evenings while I worked. I went back to work 2.5 weeks after my C-section. If I hadn't agreed to start that quickly, they wouldn't have hired me. I even went to the doctor and asked for a full letter explaining my labor restrictions and brought it on my first day. I walked into the manager's office expecting to see the hiring manager or at least some other familiar manager, but no. Sitting there was a stupid manager who used to be an hourly employee at another branch and thought she knew better than everyone else. I handed her the doctor's note, and she looked at it as if she were holding a dirty diaper. I asked her to show the note to the hiring manager, but she didn't say anything. I shrugged and went to the break room. I saw that all my former colleagues were still working there, and they immediately surrounded me to see photos of the baby. I was crying the whole time because it felt like I had come home. It felt like I was once again surrounded by people who supported me. Until the stupid manager screamed that we needed to get to work, even though there weren't even any customers. We scattered like flies and started faking busy work. I put my phone in my pocket before clocking in and checked it periodically between serving customers to make sure my son was okay. I think most managers would have understood that I wasn't texting, just quickly checking notifications. But not the stupid manager. She hated it. She sat in the office watching the cameras, and apparently, I checked my phone too many times. Long live postpartum depression and anxiety. The stupid manager flew around the corner at the speed of light and stared at me like she wanted to finish me off. Hazel, what the hell are you doing? You have no right to be on your phone while on shift. You should know this. I was never good at handling being yelled at, so I just apologized. Some colleagues stood up for me, and I started crying again. The stupid manager also seemed to hate tears. She turned to me, piercing me with her gaze like knives again. And why the F***ck are you bawling now? Fortunately, a customer walked in, and she just rushed off. I was fuming. Within the hour, I saw her starting to pack up to leave her shift and thought it was a blessing. Of course, it wasn't. The lazy manager appeared, someone I'd had problems with the last time. Not that I'd said anything to her personally, she just never worked. She sat in the office staring at cameras, eating food off the line, which the company forbade. Employees weren't entitled to free food, only a discount. Did she ever pay for it? Not once. She wrote it off as waste food at the end of the day. I can't remember exactly what it's called in the report. The lazy manager saw me, and her face fell. "Oh, hi, Hazel," she said with disdain. I put on my sweetest expression. The lazy manager went to talk to the stupid manager, but they made a huge mistake. They left the door ajar. And you know what? I was working the line closest to the door and heard absolutely everything. Here's what they said. Lazy manager. I thought the hiring manager turned her down. Stupid manager. Apparently not. She's on her phone all day. Of course, she's the worst employee we've ever had. I'll call the hiring manager and deal with it. I've never hated anyone as much as her. She looks pretty lazy. Oh, here's her pathetic doctor's note. Well, let's see how much that helps her. As if we haven't given birth to children ourselves. Now I was truly angry, but I bit my tongue. I waited for what I knew was bound to happen. I knew exactly what I was going to do because I was fed up with being dragged through the dirt. The stupid manager left, and the lazy manager called me into the office. I was in the middle of preparing an order, but she is the manager after all. I left the poor order sitting right on the line and went to the office. Yes, lazy manager. She didn't even look up from the computer. Hazel, what is this doctor's note? I just pulled my phone out of my pocket and tried to show her a photo of my son. Oh, you gave birth, she said, in a tone implying no man would ever want anything to do with me. I smiled sweetly and nodded. A plan was slowly forming in my head. And so, 4 days passed. The lazy manager didn't help us close the restaurant at all. And I was getting home after 2 a.m. every day, even though the place closed at 10 o'clock on weekdays and 11 o'clock on weekends. I was exhausted. My sister couldn't constantly watch my child. This was completely wrong. The lazy manager was on shift again. And we had a lot of customers. I went to drop some fries because our fry cook was busy with chicken strips. I opened the small freezer near the fryers. It was empty. Which made sense. I hadn't seen anyone bring a new box. Well, great. Hey, we're out of fries. I shouted. Zero reaction. Hey, guys, the cook is busy, we need fries. Silence. Strange. Fine. Hey, lazy manager, we need fries. The lazy manager opened the office door. Get them yourself, Hazel. I walked up to the office. Lazy manager, I can't. The doctor said I can't lift more than 3 kilograms. The lazy manager rolled her eyes and looked me straight in the face. Look, go get the damn fries in the freezer. 2 boxes. I don't care what your doctor said. Do it. And stay off your phone. And there it was, my opportunity for malicious obedience. I walked into the freezer and looked at a box of French fries. I really shouldn't, this could harm my health, as the doctor said. But the lazy manager ordered it. That morning, I'd noticed that a couple of stitches still hadn't started dissolving, so I'd already called and made an appointment 2 weeks early. Everything was lining up perfectly. I took that box from the bottom shelf and turned it so I could see the weight. I wasn't allowed to use my phone, but she couldn't see me in the freezer. I snapped a photo of the box. I sent the photo to my sister with a message. The manager said I have no choice and I must lift this box. She doesn't believe my doctor's note. Can't reply, she banned me from using my phone. I made sure the message sent and turned off the phone. I took that box, lifted it, and hauled it to the small freezer 6 meters away. I'll say one thing, adrenaline really helps dull the pain until it wears off. I felt wetness in my pants and went to the break room. Not the restroom, it's too private there. I turned so the cameras couldn't see and looked into my pants. Blood. I was bleeding. Ah, yes. Those very stitches that hadn't even started healing. But there was another pain I'd never felt before. I went to the lazy manager with a napkin soaked in blood. Luckily, the pickup line was far from the office. I would never have let blood get on the food. Because, of course, I was trying to stop the bleeding. I was immediately sent home to my sister, who was in a wild panic after my message. I called the doctor's office 10 minutes before closing. I explained the situation, and they scheduled me for the next day, telling me to go to the hospital if the bleeding didn't stop. My sister and I bandaged me as best we could, and I waited for the appointment. When my doctor found out why I'd lifted that box of fries after all, he said, "I'll handle everything." And his voice sounded more like a concerned father's. But I assured him I'd handle it myself. All I needed from him was a new doctor's note. You see, I found out that the hiring manager, who was also the restaurant manager and was preparing to become a district manager, had returned from vacation. She was on the schedule for the next day, and I was supposed to work too. I hobbled into the restaurant in uniform with the doctor's note in one hand, while the other gripped anything nearby to somehow soften the pain of moving. She saw me and immediately sat me down on a chair in the break room. There was pure alarm on her face. "Hazel, what happened?" I told her everything. She asked if I'd given a doctor's note to any of the managers, and I said yes. She couldn't find it, but she didn't need to. What the lazy and stupid managers didn't know was that my sister had a printer with a scanner, and we had a weird feeling that a copy of the first note might come in handy. So in my hands, I had not only the new note but a copy of the original stapled to it, which stated I needed light duty because if I tore the stitches, my recovery process would be prolonged. But the new note explained that because I hadn't been provided with light duty, I hadn't only torn a stitch but had also pulled several muscles. When the hiring manager read both notes, she was livid. She checked the schedule and, seeing that neither manager was working today, called them both in for a meeting. She asked if I would stay for this meeting and said I could sit in her comfortable chair in the office while we waited for them. I sat and waited for the show. 30 minutes later, the hiring manager was already chewing them out completely. She said they had no right to ignore the doctor's orders and that they shouldn't have forbidden me from checking my phone. It turned out the hiring manager had also worked here when she gave birth to her youngest child, so she perfectly understood the anxiety of being away from a newborn for a long time. I saw the stupid manager get fired on the spot. The lazy one was demoted to line cook because the hiring manager said she needed to learn humility. She worked as a cook at another branch for about a month, and then she was fired for stealing food. Update. When I posted this story, many of you asked why I didn't sue the company. First, it didn't even cross my mind because I'd never dealt with anything like this. Second, when my best friend brought it up, my sister said it wasn't worth it. Third, I was much more concerned with the need to provide diapers and formula for my son right now. If you're interested, the hiring manager found alternative ways for me to work. She gave me a comfortable stool to sit on and trained me to work the register. I could sit and take orders instead of walking back and forth until another 2 months of my recovery had passed. And upon her requests, I was given an extra meal a day. She also helped me get to the restroom whenever I needed, gave me more time for breaks, and if she couldn't help herself, she asked one of the employees to help me. Maybe she was doing it to avoid worrying about a potential lawsuit, but I believe she had treated me maternally long before my son was born. My son is doing great, and I recovered surprisingly well. Yes, I knew my stitches hadn't healed yet, and yes, logic suggested it was a bad idea. It's bad, don't hurt yourself because of these people. But I didn't realize I could actually tear the stitches inside my body, and I certainly didn't think muscles could be injured so easily after major surgery. I didn't ask, the doctor didn't say, and my sister didn't know either. Thank you for taking the time to read my story.